Ryland trudged through the endless desert, the sun beating down on his shoulders. The sand was hot beneath his boots, and the wind carried tiny particles that stung his face. He had been walking for hours, searching for a hidden oasis rumored to exist beyond the dunes. His water supply was low, and every step felt heavier than the last. The desert stretched on, barren and silent, except for the occasional whisper of wind. Suddenly he heard a weak, raspy cry. Ryland froze, scanning the horizon. There, barely moving on a small dune, was a tiny creature. Its scales were dusty and cracked, its wings small and folded against its thin body. The creature's amber eyes blinked slowly, filled with desperation. Ryland recognized it immediately, a young alien dragon likely no more than a few months old. Its thin frame trembled with exhaustion, and its mouth opened slightly, begging for water. Ryland's first instinct was caution. Alien creatures could be dangerous, even young ones. Yet, looking at its pleading eyes, he felt a pang of compassion. He knelt in the sand, reaching into his backpack for his canteen. The dragon weakly hissed, but it did not move away. It was too tired, too thirsty. Ryland tilted the canteen and offered a small amount of water. The dragon lapped at it greedily, making soft, hoarse noises as it drank. Ryland smiled faintly, watching the little creature regain a bit of strength with each sip. The desert was unforgiving. Ryland knew he had to ration his water carefully if both of them were to survive. He hesitated for a moment, weighing his options. But as the dragon blinked up at him, trust in its eyes, he made a decision. He gave it more than he should have, letting the canteen tip fully so the dragon could drink until it had strength. The dragon's tail flicked lightly in gratitude, and it nuzzled Ryland's hand, a gesture that sent a warm feeling through his chest. With the immediate danger of dehydration gone, Ryland examined the dragon more closely. Its scales shimmered faintly in the sunlight, a mixture of bronze and green, though they were caked with sand and dust. Its wings were small, not yet strong enough for flight, and its claws dug weakly into the sand as it tried to stand. Ryland gently helped it to its feet, supporting its body with one arm. "We have to keep moving," he said softly. The dragon blinked slowly, acknowledging him as if it understood. They began walking together, the dragon stumbling at first but gaining strength with each step. Ryland pointed out landmarks, small rock formations that could provide shade or shelter. The dragon occasionally followed, occasionally ran ahead a few steps, then turned back to check on him. It was clear it had instinct, but it was also learning quickly. Ryland marveled at its intelligence. Even in its weakened state, it was aware of its surroundings, cautious of the shifting sand and the distant heat shimmer that made the desert seem endless. As the sun climbed higher, the heat intensified. Ryland found a shallow rock formation that cast a thin shadow. He set the dragon down and let it rest. Its breathing was heavy but steadier than before. Ryland drank a small sip of water himself, careful not to take too much. He could see that the dragon was learning to trust him. When he reached out to offer more water, the dragon lapped carefully without fear. Their bond, born out of survival, was growing already. The afternoon brought new dangers. A sudden gust of wind blew sand into the dragon's eyes, and it whimpered softly. Ryland shielded it with his body, brushing the grains away and speaking in calm, steady tones. "It's okay," he murmured. "I've got you. We'll get through this together." The dragon pressed closer to him, feeling safer under his protection. For a creature so young and alone, trust had come quickly, forged in the heat of the desert and the immediacy of need. They continued walking, the dragon gaining energy with each step. Ryland noticed small changes. Its tail began to flick more confidently, its wings lifted slightly when the wind blew, and its eyes seemed sharper, more aware of threats and landmarks. The dragon's body was healing, but its mind was learning to rely on Ryland as much as instinct guided it. This mutual dependence was rare and remarkable, especially between a human and an alien creature from such different worlds. By evening, the sun dipped low, painting the desert in shades of red and gold. Ryland found a small valley where the sand was cooler, and he set up a makeshift camp. The dragon curled beside him, its scales glinting in the fading light. It looked at him with curious, trusting eyes, no longer just a frightened, thirsty creature. It had survived because of him, and now it seemed to recognize that he would continue to protect it. As night fell and the temperature dropped, Ryland shared the last of his water, letting the dragon drink before he drank himself. He smiled faintly. "You're going to make it," he whispered. "We both are." The dragon gave a low, contented rumble, its body relaxed for the first time in days. The desert was vast and dangerous, but for the first time they were not alone. They had found each other, and in that moment, a bond was formed, one of trust, survival, and the promise of adventure. Rylan looked at the stars emerging above the desert, feeling a sense of peace despite the challenges ahead. The dragon curled closer, leaning against him, and for the first time both of them rested without fear. The human had given more than water, and the dragon had responded with loyalty and trust. This was only the beginning, but the foundation of their story had been laid, under the endless desert sky, where survival had brought them together. The next morning the desert sun rose early, casting long shadows across the golden sands. Rylan woke first, feeling the warmth of the dragon curled beside him. The creature stretched, its small wings quivering as it shook off the coolness of night. Its amber eyes met Rylan's, alert and curious. The bond formed yesterday had not faded. Instead it had grown stronger. The dragon trusted him now, and he trusted it in return. They began their journey again, moving carefully across the dunes. Rylan knew the desert could be cruel, with sudden sandstorms, hidden cliffs, and predators that could strike without warning. The dragon struggled at first, its legs weak, but every step it took showed improvement. Rylan offered it water and small rations of dried food he carried. The dragon lapped and nibbled, then pressed closer to him, as if acknowledging that their survival depended on cooperation. Rylan noticed how keenly the dragon watched him. When he paused to examine the terrain or check the map, the dragon would crouch nearby, scanning the surroundings, ears twitching at every sound. It was learning fast, observing human behavior and adapting its own movements. Rylan smiled faintly. "You're quick, smarter than you look," he murmured. The dragon responded with a small hiss, almost playful, before moving closer. As the day progressed, the desert heat intensified. Rylan found a rocky outcrop that provided shade and relief from the sun. He guided the dragon beneath it, letting it rest. He used the moment to study it more closely. Its scales had begun to regain their luster, bronze and green catching the sunlight faintly. Its breathing had steadied, and its eyes no longer held panic but attentiveness. Rylan realized that survival was not just about water and food, it was about teaching the young creature to navigate dangers wisely. They continued walking, side by side, the dragon beginning to anticipate his movements. When Rylan stopped to point out a safer path around shifting sand, the dragon adjusted immediately, stepping carefully. When he crouched to avoid a sudden slide of sand, the dragon mirrored him, learning by watching. Trust was no longer one-sided. The dragon was becoming an active partner, contributing to their shared survival. In the afternoon, dark clouds appeared on the horizon, unusual in the desert. A storm was coming. Rylan spotted a narrow canyon ahead that could offer shelter. He called to the dragon, and it followed obediently, moving more confidently than before. The wind picked up and sand whipped around them, stinging their skin and scales. The dragon hissed nervously at first, but then looked at Rylan for guidance. He extended his hand, signaling it to stay close. It obeyed instantly, trusting him to lead them to safety. They reached the canyon just as the storm hit. Rain fell in sudden, heavy sheets, turning sand into slippery mud. Rylan and the dragon huddled beneath a rocky overhang. Rylan shared a small amount of water, and the dragon drank quietly, no longer frantic or fearful. The storm raged outside, but inside their shelter, they waited in silence. It was another test of trust. Rylan relied on the dragon's instincts to alert him to dangers in the canyon, and the dragon relied on Rylan's knowledge of terrain and safety. Together they survived. As the storm passed, the desert seemed refreshed, but new dangers emerged. Small predators, attracted by the rain, began to roam near the canyon. The dragon stiffened, ears twitching, eyes scanning. Rylan whispered calmly, "Stay close, watch and wait for my signal." The dragon crouched beside him, ready to act. When a small pack of desert scavengers approached, the dragon leaped forward, growling and blocking their path. Rylan acted quickly, using a stick to scare the creatures away. The dragon's reaction was instinctive, but also guided by the understanding it had developed with him. They protected each other side by side. By evening, the desert was calm again. Rylan and the dragon climbed to a small ridge overlooking the dunes. The dragon moved with more confidence, its small wings lifting slightly as it tested the air. It had learned that the human would guide and protect it, but also that it had the strength to defend itself when necessary. Rylan felt a deep sense of satisfaction. They were no longer a human and a frightened alien dragon. They were a team, each learning from the other. Night fell and the temperature dropped. Rylan set up a small fire using dry sticks he had gathered. The dragon curled beside him, resting its head on folded paws. Its breathing was steady, calm and trusting. Rylan poured a small amount of water for the creature, and it drank without hesitation. The bond between them had solidified through shared challenges, lessons, and survival. Trust was no longer fragile, it had become a foundation for their companionship. Rylan looked at the stars above, thinking about the days ahead. They would face more sandstorms, predators, and unknown dangers, but now they were ready. The dragon had learned to rely on him, and he had learned to rely on it. Together they were stronger, smarter, and braver than they would be alone. Survival had taught them both patience, courage, and the power of trust. As the fire flickered and the night deepened, the dragon nuzzled against Rylan's side. He smiled, gently patting its scales. "We'll make it through this desert," he whispered. The dragon purred softly in response, a sound of comfort and acknowledgement. Trust had been earned, but it had also been given freely, creating a partnership that neither of them could have imagined when they first met in the scorching sands. For the first time since he found it, Rylan felt that they were not just surviving, they were living, learning, and forming a bond that would carry them through whatever the desert or the galaxy might throw at them. Together they had found strength, courage, and the beginning of a lifelong companionship. The desert morning was crisp, the sun just beginning to climb over the horizon. Rylan stirred from his rest, glancing at the dragon lying beside him. The creature's eyes opened slowly, amber and alert, reflecting the first light of day. It had grown stronger over the past few days, its small wings stretching and flexing, its legs no longer trembling with weakness. The bond between human and dragon had deepened, built on trust, care, and shared survival. They moved cautiously through the sand, Rylan leading and the dragon following closely. The desert was full of hidden dangers, quicksand patches, shifting dunes, and predators that could strike suddenly. Today, Rylan intended to teach the dragon a lesson about courage, a skill just as vital as survival. He found a rocky ridge rising from the sands, a natural training ground where the dragon could test its strength and instincts. "Stay close," Rylan instructed, kneeling beside the young dragon. "You can do this, but you have to trust yourself, and me." The dragon blinked, tilting its head as if it understood the challenge. It had already learned to trust Rylan in matters of safety, but courage required more than trust. It required action, risk, and facing fear. Rylan led the dragon to the first obstacle, a narrow ledge that dropped sharply on one side. Below, the sand stretched endlessly, and the wind gusted through the rocks. The dragon hesitated, claws digging into the stone, eyes flicking downward. Rylan crouched nearby, speaking softly, "You can make it. Step carefully. I'm right here." The dragon exhaled, a soft hiss, then placed one claw forward, testing the surface. Rylan nodded, encouraging it, and the creature inched across, muscle by muscle, until it reached the safer side. It had faced its first test of courage. Encouraged, Rylan led the dragon toward a narrow crevice, where a small desert predator, quick and dangerous, scuttled out. The dragon froze at first, its tail swishing nervously. Rylan called it to step forward. "You've got this. Watch me, then act." The dragon mirrored his stance, crouching low, eyes fixed on the predator. When the predator lunged, the dragon sprang instinctively, blocking it and hissing loudly. The predator retreated, and the dragon stood tall, victorious. Rylan smiled, placing a hand gently on its scaled head. "That's courage," he said. Throughout the day, Rylan devised new challenges. They crossed crumbling sand cliffs, navigated tight canyons, and avoided sudden sand traps. Each obstacle tested the dragon's strength, instincts, and resolve. At first, the creature hesitated at every turn, its fear evident. But with Rylan's calm guidance, encouragement, and steady presence, the dragon began acting on instinct, blending courage with intelligence. Each success boosted its confidence, and it grew increasingly willing to take calculated risks. By mid-afternoon, the sun was high and the heat oppressive. Rylan led the dragon to a small oasis hidden among rocks, a place where the sand had cooled and water pooled in shaded hollows. The dragon drank eagerly, then looked to Rylan as if seeking approval. He nodded, smiling. "You've done well. Today you've learned more than survival, you've learned courage." The dragon rumbled softly in response, a sound of satisfaction and pride. As they rested, Rylan reflected on how much the dragon had changed. It was no longer a helpless, thirsty creature begging for water. Its eyes held awareness, determination, and understanding. The dragon's small body carried strength it had not known it possessed, and its spirit had been tested by the desert and by Rylan's lessons. The human realized that courage was not about the absence of fear, it was about moving forward despite it, and the dragon had learned that today. Later, while descending a steep dune, they encountered a sudden sandstorm. The winds whipped at them and visibility dropped to mere feet. The dragon hesitated, frightened by the roaring storm. Rylan grabbed its claw, steadying it. "Remember today. You're brave. Trust me, trust yourself." The dragon leaned into him, trusting his guidance completely. Step by step, they navigated the treacherous sand, Rylan teaching courage through action, and the dragon responding instinctively, no longer paralyzed by fear. As evening approached, the desert calmed and the storm subsided. The dragon stretched its wings, small but strong now, testing the air and moving with confidence. Rylan watched it closely, proud of the creature's progress. Their journey was far from over, but today had proven that trust and guidance could teach even the wildest creature to face its fears. That night, they camped on a high ridge overlooking the desert. The dragon lay curled beside Rylan, but unlike before, it moved with a sense of pride. It had faced challenges and learned courage in the harshest conditions. Rylan poured a small amount of water for the dragon, who drank calmly, then pressed its head against his arm. "You've earned this," he said softly. "Not just survival but bravery. And there's more ahead." The stars sparkled above, vast and endless, just like the desert. Rylan thought about the adventures yet to come, the challenges, dangers, and discoveries. He knew the dragon would face them with courage now because it had learned how. The young creature had trusted him when it was weakest, and he had guided it to find strength within itself. As they rested, Rylan whispered, "Tomorrow will bring new trials, but we'll face them together. You've learned to trust, and now you've learned to be brave." The dragon's rumble was soft but steady, a sound that carried trust, pride, and companionship. The lessons of courage were now a part of it, shaping the creature into more than a survivor. It was becoming a partner, a friend, and a guardian of the desert alongside Rylan. In the quiet night, the human and dragon shared a moment of calm, the desert stretching endlessly around them. Courage had been tested, learned, and earned. The bond between them had deepened further, ready to face the unknown adventures that lay beyond the sands. The desert was quiet that morning, but Rylan knew danger could appear at any moment. He and the young dragon had grown stronger and braver, but the desert was full of threats, both natural and sentient. As they moved across the dunes, the wind shifted, carrying an unusual scent. The dragon paused, its ears twitching, eyes narrowing. Rylan noticed the change immediately. "Something's coming," he said, his voice low. The dragon's tail flicked nervously, but it stayed close, ready to follow his lead. Far on the horizon, Rylan spotted movement. A group of raiders, human-like but with strange technology, riding desert beasts and scanning the dunes. Their eyes glinted with greed. They hunted rare creatures, and a young alien dragon would be a prize. Rylan clenched his fists. They were outnumbered, but he had trained the dragon to act with courage. Now they would have to put those lessons to the test. He whispered to the dragon, "Stay close, follow my signals. Don't panic." The dragon leaned into him, hissing softly but remaining calm. They began moving toward a rocky outcrop, using the terrain for cover. The raiders' scanners passed over them, but the clever positioning of the rocks shielded them from detection. The dragon's instincts complemented Rylan's strategy. It ducked behind boulders, alerting him to every subtle change in the sand and air. One raider spotted a glint of the dragon's scales. He shouted, and the group veered toward them, weapons raised. Rylan stayed calm, signaling the dragon to crouch low. The young dragon's heart pounded, but it remembered the lessons of courage. Step by step, it followed Rylan, moving carefully and avoiding unnecessary attention. The raiders closed in, but Rylan had a plan. They would not fight recklessly. The two led the raiders into a narrow canyon. The terrain was treacherous, but Rylan knew it well. He whispered instructions to the dragon, "Jump to the ledge, then back down. Keep moving." The dragon hesitated, but Rylan's calm voice reassured it. It leaped, claws digging into stone, and landed safely. Together, they navigated the canyon, using the dragon's small size and agility to their advantage. Rylan followed, guiding the creature and keeping alert to the raiders' approach. The raiders tried to follow, but the narrow canyon worked against them. Some of their creatures stumbled on loose sand, and the scanners failed to detect the clever movements of Rylan and the dragon. At one point, a raider aimed a weapon, and the dragon instinctively roared, creating a cloud of dust that blinded the enemy temporarily. Rylan grabbed a rock and hurled it, causing a small landslide that blocked the path. The combination of human ingenuity and dragon instinct kept them safe, turning fear into advantage. They paused briefly on a small plateau above the canyon, catching their breath. The dragon drank water from Rylan's canteen, still alert, tail flicking at every sound. Rylan patted its head. You did well. Not just courage but quick thinking. You've learned more than survival. You're ready for anything the desert throws at us. The dragon gave a low, satisfied rumble, its trust in Rylan unshakable. The raiders were not giving up easily. They regrouped below, scanning the plateau. Rylan knew they had to act carefully. He looked at the dragon. We'll distract them together. Follow my lead. The dragon crouched, eyes sharp, ready to move. Rylan picked up a stick and hurled it down the canyon, creating noise. The raiders' attention shifted for a moment, and the dragon leaped, dashing along the rocks to the far side, out of sight. Rylan followed immediately, leading the dragon through a hidden path he had noticed earlier. By late afternoon, they had put significant distance between themselves and the raiders. The desert sun cast long shadows, but Rylan and the dragon were unhurt. They found a small hidden valley with shade and water. The dragon drank greedily and Rylan smiled. We made it. Together we're stronger than they expected. Courage, trust, and teamwork, it's what kept us alive. The dragon pressed close, leaning against him, a silent acknowledgement of their bond. That night, as the desert cooled, Rylan reflected on the day. The dragon had faced real threats and acted with courage and intelligence. It had learned not just to trust him but to act decisively on its own instincts. Rylan knew the lessons of survival and bravery were now ingrained in the young dragon, preparing it for the challenges still ahead. The fire flickered between them, casting dancing shadows across the sand. The dragon nuzzled against Rylan, and he gently stroked its scales. The desert is dangerous, he said softly, but we've proven we can face it together. No matter what comes next, we'll survive, because we have each other. The dragon gave a soft rumble, comforted and proud. They were more than human and alien, they were partners, a team capable of overcoming any threat. The stars above twinkled, vast and endless. Rylan and the dragon lay close, listening to the quiet desert night. The day had tested them, shown their courage and strengthened their bond. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, perhaps even more dangerous, but together they had learned to face fear with trust, wisdom, and bravery. The desert threat had passed, but its lessons would stay with them forever, shaping the young dragon into a true companion and ally. The morning sun rose over the desert, painting the sands in warm gold and red hues. Rylan stirred, stretching his tired limbs, and glanced at the young dragon curled beside him. It had grown noticeably stronger since the day he had first found it, its wings now longer, muscles firmer, and eyes sharper. The bond between them had evolved far beyond survival. They were no longer just a human and a frightened creature. They were companions, partners who had faced danger, learned trust, and tested courage together. Rylan packed their small supplies carefully, checking water, food, and tools. The dragon nudged him gently, a soft rumble vibrating from its chest, as if reminding him they were ready to move. Together, they stepped out of the small valley that had been their temporary refuge, the desert stretching endlessly before them. Today was not about danger, it was about exploring what they could achieve together. As they walked, Rylan noticed the dragon observing everything carefully. It scanned the horizon, sniffed the air, and occasionally lifted its wings slightly to test the wind. The desert had been harsh, but it had taught them both valuable lessons: resilience, patience, and the importance of teamwork. Every step they took reflected their bond, each relying on the other for guidance, protection, and companionship. They came upon a rocky ridge overlooking a wide expanse of sand dunes. Rylan stopped, letting the dragon take in the view. "Look at this," he said softly. "The desert is vast, but together we can face anything it throws at us." The dragon lifted its head, nostrils flaring as it inhaled the warm air, its tail swishing thoughtfully. It had learned the rhythm of trust, the patterns of courage, and the subtle cues of human guidance. It was ready to act on its own instincts, yet it remained close, loyal, and connected to Rylan. A sudden movement in the distance caught Rylan's eye. Small desert creatures scurried across the dunes, searching for food. The dragon crouched instinctively, watching, its body tensed but controlled. Rylan smiled. "See? You're ready. You can be brave but also cautious. That's the balance we've learned." The dragon responded with a low, approving rumble and moved beside him, mirroring his calm confidence. Hours passed as they explored the desert together. Rylan taught the dragon how to read the sand for hidden dangers, how to find small water pockets beneath the dunes, and how to navigate using the position of the sun and shadows. The dragon, in turn, displayed remarkable intelligence and adaptability, responding quickly to his instructions and even anticipating challenges before Rylan could point them out. Their relationship had transformed into one of mutual respect and understanding, each learning from the other. By mid-afternoon, they reached a canyon where a cool stream flowed, a rare gift in the desert. The dragon drank deeply, its scales glinting in the sunlight. Ryland smiled, observing the creature's renewed energy and confidence. "You've grown," he said, softly patting its head. "Not just in strength but in spirit. Today you're more than a survivor, you're my partner, my friend." The dragon responded with a soft, contented rumble, nuzzling against him. It was a silent acknowledgement of the bond they now shared. As evening approached, Ryland set up a small camp beside the stream. He shared some water and food with the dragon, who drank and nibbled calmly. The lessons of survival, trust, and courage had matured into a deeper connection, one that went beyond mere life and death. They had faced storms, predators, and the harsh desert together, and through it all, they had built something lasting: friendship, loyalty, and an unspoken understanding of each other's strengths and weaknesses. Night fell and the stars sparkled brightly across the sky. Ryland and the dragon rested together on a warm patch of sand. The dragon's head rested lightly against his side, and Ryland gently stroked its scales. "We've survived," he whispered, "but we've also learned to live, to understand, and to trust. That's a bond no desert, no threat can ever break." The dragon let out a low, steady rumble in response, its eyes half closed in comfort and trust. As the night deepened, the wind softened, carrying the cool air across the desert. Ryland looked up at the stars, feeling a profound sense of peace. The young dragon, once a desperate, frightened creature, had grown into a brave, loyal companion. Together they had turned survival into friendship, fear into courage, and trust into an unbreakable bond. Ryland knew their journey was far from over. The desert would continue to challenge them, but now they faced the future as equals, each contributing to the other's strength. The dragon had chosen him as a protector and guide, but Ryland had also chosen the dragon as a partner, a friend, and a companion beyond survival. Together they were ready for any adventure, any danger, and any challenge the vast desert, or the galaxy, could present. As they lay beneath the stars, the desert calm around them, Ryland whispered one last time, "We're more than a human and a dragon. We're a team. And together nothing can stop us." The dragon purred softly, a sound of contentment, loyalty, and love. Their bond was no longer born from necessity, it was born from choice, trust, and the shared experiences that had shaped them both. In the quiet night, Ryland and the dragon slept side by side, the desert stretching endlessly around them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and new adventures, but they would face them together. Their bond had gone beyond survival. It had become a partnership of trust, courage, and unwavering companionship, a story that would continue to unfold under the endless desert sky.